Good morning everyone, today we're taking a brand new video from the film to this about how the Ben 10 Omnitrix is deadly. Now I don't know if they mean biologically because of it constantly moving around and shifting his genetics, or genetically because of, well, as I said, all the transformations. And all we know is that, well, if you actually ever seen the movie Race Against Time, no, that wasn't it. You know what, I don't remember what it was. It was the one where he first unlocked Way Big. The Omnitrix has the self-destruct feature, which could destroy, well, all of existence. So, let's hop in.
The Omnitrix is destroying Ben 10. If you dig into the lore of this series and actually look at the science of what's going on with this handy little device, you'll realize that Ben 10 might be digging himself a deeper grave every single time he's using it. And that could result in a fate even worse than death.
What, like cancer?
Hello Internet, welcome to Film Theory, the show that's no ordinary kid because an alien device stuck to my wrist and did what it did. And it wants to challenge you to transform that subscribe button in 5 seconds. You ready? 5, 4, 3,
I'm already
2,
subscribed.
1! Did you manage to transform in time? So if you didn't pick it up, today we are finally cracking open the absolute classic that is the Ben 10 franchise. This Cartoon Network series is all about a 10-year-old named Ben Tennyson whose life changed—
correction, his full name is Benjamin Kirby Tennyson, but people just call him Ben.
Just forever when he finds an extraterrestrial weapon called the Omnitrix while out on a walk in the woods. With this device, he can transform into any alien on a genetic level, each species with their own unique abilities. Speed, flight, strength, durability, shooting fire from fingertips, rewriting entire galaxies from scratch. You know, the basics for crime fighting. Basically, if there's any superpower you can imagine, there's an alien for it. So Ben teams up with his cousin Gwen, who has magical talents, and their grandpa
who unlocks her magical talents,
Max, who already knows a suspicious amount about alien life and technology, to do heroics across the world. And from there, the entire franchise follows Ben's journey as he matures and masters his newfound powers to defend Earth from threats both domestic and extraterrestrial. As a proud 90s kid, I came to the Ben 10 franchise a little late and didn't realize just how powerful a series it was. Seriously, I was shocked by the sheer amount of content that's been produced by this concept. 5 full TV shows, 5 movies, a bunch of TV specials, crossovers, video games. I actually didn't know this, but Ben 10 is one of the highest earning media franchises in history, with billions in revenue. It's standing shoulder to shoulder with titans like Pirates of the Caribbean and the Muppets, and it's ahead of the likes of Superman, Shrek, and Sonic the Hedgehog. Ben 10 is flourishing, and it's one of those rare franchises that grew up with its audience. Seriously, some of the jokes made in later series are just like so out of pocket.
Look, Gwen, you have to treat a car like you treat a woman.
Go on.
No. I sense I've made a mistake of some kind.
While other parts leaned into some gnarly looking sequences that were basically body horror. Absolutely brutal, and I am here for it. But best of all, with so many episodes across so many series, you know that there's a ton of lore to dive into here and theorize about. And right off the bat, there's one thing in this series that really caught my—
I mean, there is plenty of lore, but then again, the Ink Tank also made an hour-long video, or I think it was an hour-long video, explaining literally the history of Ben 10, the series, from the beginning to the end of the series. Not including the reboot, of course, because, that's a reboot. You can't really count that into the main series.
My attention. The device that this whole franchise was built on, the Omnitrix. Yet when you really sit down to think about what this device is and what it actually does, it's horrifying. Get this, theoretically, the Omnitrix would basically be killing Ben with every transformation. Yeah, every single one. By trying to play hero and live vicariously through all of these alien transformations, Ben would be digging himself a deeper hole every time he tries to save the world. Don't believe me? Well, get ready to fight some crime, loyal theorists, because it's theory time. So the best way to start diving deep into the ill effects of the Omnitrix would be to discuss what exactly the Omnitrix is and what it does.
Okay, first of all, if anyone is watching this, they know what the Omnitrix is. The Omnitrix, as it's actually known as, was a device created by Azimuth, the smallest Galvan in the history of Galvan Prime, and even Galvan B. He made it not as a weapon, but as a device to create peace and unity by allowing people to literally walk a mile in each other's shoes. But then, of course, one person decided, no, this can be used as a weapon, so we had to send it away, and the show began.
Because let me tell you, in my time exploring the iceberg of lore that came packaged with Ben 10, the Omnitrix is the gift that keeps on giving. This tiny little device on Ben's wrist is much more than meets the eye. For example, did you know that according to series creator Duncan Rouleau, this thing operates faster than the speed of light? Yeah,
Damn.
This little thing is so powerful that it breaks the laws of physics. But that's just
fast.
the beginning. In the original series,
Then again, I guess that makes sense. We see the transformations and they drag out, but for everyone else, it's just like a quick flash of green.
Given incredibly little information about how exactly the Omnitrix works. I mean, even the theme song points this out. Alright then, Omnitrix, keep your secrets. But despite this, we can learn a lot given what we see in the show. For example, there's both a timeout feature and a cooldown period between transformations, so its power is heavily restricted, at least to start out with, and no matter what Ben...
I mean, in this form that we know it as, that's just the prototype. Literally in incomplete form. Azimuth wasn't done with it, but Vilgax said, hey, I'm gonna take this. So he said, try me. Click, and sent it flying.
Tries, it won't come off.
I know he didn't send it flying, but you get what I'm getting.
Though Ben starts out with a roster of just 10 aliens he can transform into,
a playlist.
Ben 10, I see what you did there. There are over 1 million inside.
Who knows how many more alien hero dudes are inside this thing?
It's also not the most...
I think it was said in Alien Storm there was like 1,564,000 species. I could be wrong about that. I don't completely remember.
Durable or accurate device, considering that Ben tried to jailbreak it with a screwdriver. Yeah, just like the normal screwdriver. And it's glitchy and known to have a mind of its own. Yeah, usually when Ben finds himself between a shock rock and a hard place, you can bet it's the Omnitrix doing something weird. But when it comes to figuring out how exactly this thing works, the series' big bad evil guy and Ben's arch-nemesis Vilgax is the first to provide us any useful details. How? Well, because when he first meets Ben, Vilgax is disappointed and surprised that Ben already has the device for a very specific reason.
Appears the Omnitrix is already merged with your own DNA.
Wait, hello?
I mean, how else do you think he's able to turn back? It has to have a sample of the host DNA so it knows, okay, this is the guy that's welding me, and now I know how to turn back into him.
What? Yeah, in case you missed that, the Omnitrix merged with Ben's DNA, and that's a huge deal. Later in that same episode, we see a scan of Ben, and the Omnitrix has completely affected Ben's entire body. From the double helix of his DNA to his tippy toes, not just the wrist that the Omnitrix latched onto. It's literally become a part of him, in a way that seems pretty sus, like some sort of parasitic organism stuck to Ben. And I mean, come on, the visual similarities to classic alien symbiotic parasites can't really be ignored, right? The Omnitrix moves on its own.
Okay, it's not
liquefies into an amorphous goo that jumps on him, latches onto his arm, and won't let go. It also literally changes Ben's biology enough to...
Whoa, hold on. It can come off. Yes, I know that in the main cities, the first series, Vilgax had to use a device that literally ripped it off him, even pulled his flesh. But in later series, we see that he can easily take it on and off, put it on and take it off. I mean, there's even a code to make it decouple and deactivate.
Do impossible things to protect itself and its host. Like there's an episode of Ben 10 Alien Force called Single-Handed, where the villain of the week actually chops off Ben's hand. But don't you worry, both Ben and his hand are totally fine. In fact, he can still feel it and move it, and so he does, blindly fighting back. That takes the form of just kind of, like punching the air a bit, but hey, at least he's trying. And what's more, that same episode shows that the Omnitrix has a will to survive even without Ben controlling it. It fully takes over his hand's motor functions to make decisions of its own, going into stealth mode, spotting potential danger, running for its life, climbing a tree to escape danger, and even tracking down help. On top of that, for the first couple of seasons, we're straight up led to believe that it can't be removed at all. Ever. And when it does come off, it's literally peeled off of Ben's wrist in one of the most horrific ways imaginable.
See, that's what I was talking
about. I have to remind us all that this is a kid's show. Like, dang. Overall, this is just a weird device that does strange.
And again, that's the prototype of it. It's incomplete. So of course there are features that would not be yet implemented or features that would then be changed. I mean, literally ask anyone that's watched all of the show and they'll tell you the prototype was the most faulty version of the device. Until Ben and Kevin decided that they were going to try to jailbreak it again in Alien Swarm.
Things. But here's the thing. At this point, when it's like taken off of Ben's wrist, Ben could walk away. It's off. He's free. But he doesn't. Instead, after the battle and the episode is over, Ben jumps at the opportunity to slap it right back on where he feels it belongs. Was this just an excuse to have some drama in an episode and extend a franchise that's been very successful for Cartoon Network?
Obviously.
Yes, but on top of that, we're just a couple seasons into this show, and the Omnitrix is already more than just a cool toy or a tool. It's a part of Ben's identity, enough so that he can't wait to continue his dangerous antics with it.
Until
and
he
that's
willingly
just
takes
the
it
beginning.
off.
The further the franchise goes, the more the Omnitrix becomes part of Ben's self-image. For example, he starts to view his alien transformations as just extensions of himself. He's devastated when any of them are destroyed.
And that was the reason why he took it off before the beginning of Alien Swarm.
And he names them all like they're pets or children.
Hey, what do you call this guy?
I don't know. Absolute Zero.
Boring. How about Arctic Guana?
Cool.
Gotta say though, Ben, Ghost Freak sounds less like a cool nickname and more like a creative extraterrestrial slur. You might want to workshop that one. Bottom line, Omnitrix is more than just a toy. It's part of Ben's
I mean, I guess you could go with the guy's original name, The Scale.
identity, and he grows to love it. Now, this is framed as a good thing in the show. It's a positive part of Ben's journey to become a hero. But when you take a step back and look at it from a bird's eye view, it seems to have literally changed or rewritten parts of Ben's personality to be dependent on the Omnitrix. Which, by the way, also lines up with the actual mechanics of how the Omnitrix works. And it's unsettling to say the least. So,
Go on.
what's really happening to Ben when it's hero time? How does this actually work? Well, believe it or not, but the best insight we get into the logistics of the Omnitrix here comes from the scripts of the show. In the script for an episode
okay.
of Ultimate Alien, we're told that the Omnitrix functions by releasing an Omnitrix pill into Ben's bloodstream. The pill then initiates a mutation
what?
process which literally merges the selected alien DNA with Ben's human DNA. This more or less lines up with all of the campy, overly expositional transition sequences we see in the actual show.
A mutating pill.
But hey, get this.
Oh, that would explain the green thing we just see going through the bloodstream right there. That actually makes a lot of sense.
Because of this, we can figure out pretty much how and why the Omnitrix has a timeout feature. Yeah, early on in the series, the timeout feature with the Omnitrix is an important part of Ben's transformations, both creating drama during the franchise's fights and protecting Ben. Yeah, in more than one instance, Ben has to fight off possession from his alien forms, whether it be through their body's natural instincts or the sentience of the alien overpowering Ben's consciousness. The big example of that is Ghost Freak, who grows stronger inside of the Omnitrix and can eventually take control of Ben while he's transformed. That's a gross oversimplification of like...
And he's the only transformation that actually does take over Ben via the transformation. Yes, I know someone out there's probably going to point out the whole Big Chill thing, but that wasn't Big Chill taking over. That was Big Chill being like, hey, I got eggs to lay.
Like a giant storyline, but it's a whole thing. So, knowing that Ben has a hard out of hero time with that timeout feature is a nice security blanket. Inevitably,
Until
Ben
mass
will
control.
flash red and transform back into his normal state. And if the mutation process is basically like taking a real pill, naturally, that would also eventually wear off. Like when you have a headache in real life and you take a painkiller like Tylenol, the pill is dissolved in your stomach, absorbed, and then makes its way into your bloodstream. This is also why these sorts of pills eventually wear off. Like, this is a very simplified explanation, but organs like the liver and kidney eventually clean it out of your bloodstream and out of your system. If the Omnitrix
Correct.
pill works
That is true.
anything like Earth medicine and is absorbed into the bloodstream, which eventually clears it out, all of a sudden, the Omnitrix's timeout features make a lot of sense. It serves as a heads up that Ben is out of time, that the Omnitrix pill is working its way out of his system, and that he's going to revert to his natural state. Now, that all sounds well and good, but, well, all of a sudden, this should become a big problem for Ben here because the Omnitrix also has something called the Master Control Function. This is pretty much exactly what it sounds like. Unlocking the Master Control Function means that Ben can transform into any alien he imagines with only a single thought. He has open access to all 1,900,000 and something catalog species, and as long as the power reserve isn't being exhausted faster than the Omnitrix can recharge itself, he can stay transformed for however long he wants.
Oh yeah.
This is basically like taking the training wheels off a bike. A bike that's faster than the speed of light. I'm still not over that. So Ben can now control when, what, and how long he transforms. Presumably he's sort of overridden the Omnitrix pills and is getting more into his system. Shouldn't that be good?
And as Ben10's, he actually pretty much uses it constantly, but then eventually after talking with his youngster, he's like, hey, sometimes you don't need the watch to be a hero. You can just be yourself. And dude, seriously, spend some time with your family. Grandpa Max is old. He could go at any point. Celebrate his birthday. Get him a cake. And boom. If you know the episode I'm talking about, you know the episode I'm talking about.
Well, it would be, except for one thing. The longer Ben is transformed, the worse that would be for him. And we know that thanks to a source that hits really close to home for me, trivia. See, back in the day, Cartoon Network would occasionally run marathons of their shows. During these, little bits of trivia would pop up on the screen, giving viewers a bit more insight into the shows and their universes. Ben 10 had a ton of these, but the one that I want to focus on here, one of the bits of trivia for Season 2, Episode 8 reads, the Omnitrix's time limit is to prevent the alien DNA attaching permanently to its host.
Oh, yeah, that's actually kind of called out with the history of feedback. We actually find out that Ben was overusing the conductoid DNA sample so much that even Asmund had to step in and be like, dude, you need to stop using feedback for some time. You keep using him to the point that, well, you're not going to be able to use anyone else. You will become feedback.
Yep, you heard that right. Permanently attaching to its host. That means that if Ben were one of these aliens long enough, he'd permanently transform into it. The Omnitrix pill wouldn't work its way out of his system, and his DNA wouldn't be able to turn back. So how then can he be turning back into Ben once he's unlocked the master control function, and his DNA is permanently changed? Well, when Ben is fully in control of his transformations, things look a little bit different. Before, when it wore off like a pill being sweated out of his system, the flash of the transformation was red. But now, after Ben is completely in control, when Ben goes default, the flash is bright green, basically identical to the light created by every other alien transformation we've seen throughout the franchise. What we're seeing here isn't a transformation wearing off, it's a completely different transformation. Ben is permanently an alien here, and an Omnitrix pill is mutating him back into a human. His DNA is being altered back from this alien transformation into the DNA of Ben Tennyson, which does check out with how the Omnitrix works. Basically, when a new alien touches the Omnitrix, that specific alien's DNA becomes the basis for any future transformations into that species. So Ben was just the human DNA sample taken by the Omnitrix. And just some extra—
Which was his own DNA sample at that.
Proof here that Ben's body is the basis for the human DNA stored in the Omnitrix? Well, there's a recurring villain in the series named Albedo. He was the assistant to the guy who originally created the Omnitrix, but he wanted the Omnitrix for himself. Albedo eventually tries to make an Omnitrix of his own, but when he puts it on, it reacts with the original Omnitrix that Ben has. It's like some weird version of their alien cloud storage got synced up and changed the setting on Albedo's Omnitrix. It suddenly thinks that its host is supposed to be human and transforms Albedo into an exact copy of Ben. Eventually, his alien DNA merges with Ben's, leaving Albedo permanently transformed, trapped in a body that is not his.
I am stuck in a sticky, sweaty, noisy, hungry, hairy, smelly teenage human body, constantly craving chili fries and scratching myself in places I suspect are inappropriate.
Wow.
Shiver. Again, this is a kid's show. That's dark conceptually.
Teen show,
and remember, this isn't just his appearance that's getting altered. This is happening on a DNA level, and the Omnitrix can change your personality. Albedo's consciousness is trapped in a snapshot of Ben's body, and this has a huge impact for him as a character. All of a sudden, he's forced to live with a teenage Ben's bad habits, intense food cravings, intelligence, or lack thereof. And eventually, Albedo's Omnitrix is broken, leaving him with no way to ever transform back. All of this just confirms that the Omnitrix's host will remain biologically mutated until the Omnitrix releases another pill to mutate the host again. So, okay, Ben's DNA is the human template that the Omnitrix is using. Ben is completely mutated into an alien and then mutated back into a human. Why does that matter? Well, I mean, just think this through. Sure, his original physiology was copied over into the Omnitrix, but his DNA, his molecules and cells, even his very personality, all of it was irreversibly mutated. DNA is incredibly important to making the person who they are. Even though every human's DNA is 99.9% identical from one person to another, that 0.1% difference is enough that created billions of different people with unique personalities and experiences and traits. So imagine how completely different an alien's DNA must be. How different that must make Ben every single time he—
I mean, then again, we've seen— oh my god, that looks so weird.
transforms.
Okay, we have seen a transformed Ben alien compared to an actual person of the species. And yeah, they look very similar, but the Omnitrix, when they took a DNA sample of the subject species, it actually mutated that sample to be the perfect prime, like absolute master version of the DNA. Like no faults, no anything, perfect physicality. All in all, it's just the top dog DNA of that sample.
Ben Tennyson, as we knew him, more or less died in episode 1, the very moment the Omnitrix first triggered his transformation into Heat Blast. He's not turning back into Ben with every transformation, he's being remutated back into a human that was based on that original Ben, with the firmware of his brain updated to just love the Omnitrix. And the worst part? This might end up destroying Ben entirely in the long run. See, if you watch the whole run of the Ben 10 franchise, you'll notice that the producers did the smart thing and had Ben age with each new series, growing up with the audience who started watching the original show. And there's more than one episode where we meet future versions of Ben, so we know that he will continue to age into adulthood. So, as Ben ages, the Omnitrix is keeping up with him, and given the mechanics of how we know the Omnitrix works that we've laid out here today, that means that it's copying his DNA over and over and over as he ages, rescanning and updating its Ben sample with every recalibration. As the series goes on, Ben is transforming back into a copy of 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 his original body. And just like a JPEG being saved over and over and over again, eventually, the Ben we know may be completely unrecognizable, like a pixelated mess of an outdated meme. But hey, that's just a theory. A film theory. And cut. Up next on...
Alright, well that's the end of today's video. You know what? I'm actually not going to do my regular outro. I'm going to say, go check out Ink Tank to see how they reacted to this video, because they apparently did it like a week before I did. And then again, it's actually a couple of days after their reaction I'm doing my own. And I just had these for a week. But still, go check them out. And you know what? I'll follow y'all there so that we can see what it is. Until next time, this is Fox, signing out. Peace.